appreciate it. It's my honor. Again, like I said, please be patient with us. The clicker is not really working, so you're going to hear me say next a lot. I don't want that to be an annoyance. It's just reality today. Gordon, can you please hit next? Yeah. All right. So I want to first start off and thank everybody, my host. You're fine, Gordon. That's fine. Right? So everybody with UT Strength and Nutrition, I mean, every single person from Anna, Clint, Mel, Beth, all the way down to the interns and even Amy, the dietitian, took the time to make me feel at home. Gordon helping, all the folks that we're going to speak at. You get a chance to go all around the world, sometimes and learn from some folks that all are incredibly intelligent, but none have been as welcoming as everybody here at Texas. Gordon, can you hit the next button, please? And then, of course, you guys. You come from all over. I understand this is an investment away from your family. It's a tremendous financial investment. That responsibility is not taken lightly. I understand that. There's some folks that drove 5 hours, 6 hours. I promise you to do my best to give you something tactical and some takeaways so you're not just up here listening to somebody go through some rhetoric or rhapsodize about things that sound good but aren't applicable to you. Next, please. Oh, backward. Happy fingers. There we go. I know you guys all have the slides in front of you, and that's great. If you want a digital version, emailed directly to you, which will also include part of the agility presentation I gave to Coach Maeve and his staff. Literally take out your cell phones, I'm not going to be offended, and you see the number right there. You're going to text the word coaching slides, all one word, all lowercase. Again, that's coaching slides, all one word, all lowercase, to 44222. Coaching slides, all one word, all lowercase, 44222. All right, I'll come back to this at the end if need be, but we got a thick presentation, so I want to get one more time. Coaching slides, all one word, all lowercase, 44222. You should get a prompt that asks for your email. All that stuff will be sent directly to you. Gordon? All right, so the objectives of today. We're going to list the primary components of plyometrics. We're going to look at subcomponents. We're going to look at how you program it. We're going to look at what's happened when people get a little goofy and get cute sometimes. My presentation yesterday for Coach Maeve and his staff is called Fundamentals, Not Fluff. We're going to take a similar approach. There's a lot of folks that and we all benefit from a review of plyometrics. We've gotten way outside the boundaries of some things that we've seen. And whether it's at the high school level, middle school level, or professional or collegiate level, people get really crazy with training right now. And that's why this talk's called loops, landings, and lunacy. We take concepts, we inevitably want to make them harder than they need to be, and then we start putting our athletes at risk. We're also going to identify and design effective plyometric programming variables and give you some examples of how you can structure and organize it throughout the day. Okay? I'm going to do the best I can to cover this in 60 minutes. Of course, I'll answer any questions at the end, but there's going to be a lot of good examples here. Gordon? Come on, Gordon. There we go. Big, it's a failure on my part, guys, if I don't explain things simply enough. There is going to be some technical jargon, and forgive me for that. Right? But I'm a big believer that if you can't explain something to a 6-year-old, you don't know it well enough yourself. So if you do have a question or something that doesn't make sense, it's not your fault. I likely just did not explain this efficiently enough or effectively enough. So by all means, just ask the question. I'm not going to be offended at all. Next. Next word. Alright, so first off, we need to pay homage to the greats. There's a lot of great research, and I'm just building off of kind of what they did here. Whether we're looking at Don Chu, Verkhoshansky, or James Radcliffe, guys, there are tremendous resources out there to this effect. Right? There's no lack of resources for plyometrics. So I encourage you, if these are books that you haven't read or reviewed in a while, a lot of the principles taken or embedded within this talk are based on their work. So make sure to check that out. Gordon? Defining plyometrics. Now this is where it gets tricky, and I understand the text is small, so utilize the notes in front of you in the handout. But this is critical for us getting started. Okay, the shock method was first proposed by Yuri Verkhoshansky and popularized really through depth jumps and drop jumps. Now a lot of people don't understand the origins of where these came about. Right? Verkhoshansky worked with triple jumpers. Yeah, that was one of the populations he worked with. And he was trying to really find a way to increase their force generating capacity. Because understand and appreciate this. Within the second jump or the step, within the triple jump, his athletes were creating 300 to 350 kilograms of force. Now I understand we use the imperial system here, guys. That's well over 600 pounds of force just by doing a triple jump activity. No external load, anything like that. That's physics and kinematics. So in order to get them better at applying that force and doing so quickly, he had to find a new way of overload. So of course, the first thing he did was try to address strength. Triple jumpers were doing very heavy back squats, quarter squats to be exact. But when they came back, their backs were hurting. I mean, if you look at the traditional triple jumper, right, they tend to have long femurs. They're not really meant to squat, all right? That's just not their anatomy. Their biomechanics don't really preclude them to be efficient or effective at it. So he's like, well, the backs got hurt doing that. Whether his form was good or not, who knows? You know, I wasn't there. But he needed another sense of overload. And they didn't have a leg press then. Didn't stop him from trying. He literally had people lay on their back because leg press wasn't invented. They would have two people hold a barbell with stacked weights and have the athlete try to balance it on the middle of their foot while laying on their back and press the weight. Can you imagine that? Sadly, we see some stuff like that still on social media and YouTube, right? But that didn't work. Finally, it dawned on him. Oh, I can use physics, I can use gravity. Sorry, we're getting some feedback from the speakers. I can use physics and I can use gravity, and we can overload it through dropping off a box. And if you drop off a box of a certain height, you tend to go, just rule of thumb, let's say a box that's about knee height, your body will absorb around 3 to 5 times your body weight just in landing. That's pretty substantial overload. I'll say that again. 3 to 5 times body weight just from dropping into that box, dropping off that box. And that's a big piece of what we're going to talk about today. In order to optimize force expression, we first have to optimize force absorption. And that's something that we often miss. So we're going to talk about the origins of that. Now, the term plyometrics was later proposed by Fred Will. And this is where it kind of got westernized. Plyometrics, as they're defined, or we think about them today, was not really the original idea that was based off that chalk method. Now you'll see people do like a non-counter movement jump, which would just be me down here in a paused position, static, and they're like, oh, we're doing plyos. Now, that's okay if it's part of the plyometric progression, but that in and of itself is not technically a plyo, and we're going to explain why. All right, Gordon, please. And this was a quote direct from Michael Yessis, who's done a lot of great work on it as well. It's a key quote, so please circle it if it's in the book in front of you. It says, plyometrics may involve jumping, but not all jumps are plyometrics. Sounds kind of confusing, but really all you need to know here, guys, is what dictates what is a true plyometric is the management of the amortization phase, or that delay. And for those of you not familiar with that term, it's kind of like, imagine I meet you today and I say, hi, I'm Brent. You introduce yourself, Ricardo, right? And let's say we talk for a bit, we're having a great conversation, but then there's an awkward silence. There's a delay, right? There's a gap between the next stimulus, the next part of our conversation. Think of an amortization phase like that. Kind of this awkward silence or middle ground between where I put my body through a rapid stretch and then a rapid contraction. So for example, if I'm doing a depth jump and there's a prolonged amortization phase, it would look like this. So I drop off, slow, and up. Right? Small amortization phase, I negotiate the ground much more quickly. So it's just that delay. And within that delay, there's a lot of decay. We lose a lot of that potential energy. So if I just go here, and I do a counter movement jump, which we'll talk about, yes, that's kind of a plyometric because we use a stretch shortening cycle, but it's not a true plyometric because there's not that true ground contact before. Now, if we do that over hurdles, different story. Now we're bouncing, that amortization phase is negotiated, good to go. Stay with me, I'll show plenty of examples. Next. Yeah, there we go. So let's look at the stretch shortening cycle ecosystem. What exists within this realm? Well, we have jumping, shock methods, rebound drills, we'll define all these, and then some ballistic med ball methods fit within this as well. All of these will use stretch shortening cycle based principles. They are not all plyometrics, right? We're going to classify these families because, guys, why this matters, when you're trying to create consistent programming, when you're communicating with strength coaches, sport coaches, all that, the cleaner your system and the more consistent your nomenclature, the better you're all able to speak the same language. How many of you have had a coach come up and be like, yeah, I don't want people doing what happened there, Gordon? Man down. How many people have had a coach be like, hey, I don't want them doing those jumps. I don't want them doing those plyometrics. I don't want them doing X, Y, and Z. And you're not even sure if they understand what they're talking about. And you tend to think, oh, they don't know anything. But really, have you communicated and have you clearly defined it for them? Most communication issues are our fault, not the person that we're having that conflict with. Most of them are us. Next.
Our system says a man is innocent until proven guilty.
Innocent until proven guilty. Nobody believes.
No idea what's going on
Who
there.
has written down?
That is not part of the job. There we go. All right. Now, defining plyometrics, and this goes into just what I said, so I'll be brief here. You know, even though some jumps or some types of initiations and activities are not technically plyos, I tend to call them plyos as well, just for the sake of keeping that nomenclature clean. Because it's not just about what I know, it's about what somebody else understands. So if it's a part of my plyometric progression, if you came and watched me coach in Atlanta, and you said, well, coach, I heard you say your athletes are going to start plyos now, but you were doing non-counter movement jumps and counter movement. That's not the technical definition of plyos. And believe me, many an intern will say this, because they just read the latest blog or article and they want to tell you everything they know. I said, get it, buddy. That athlete doesn't care. Okay, this is part of our progression, and it's part of creating a consistent language between us. Now, this is Dakari Johnson. When I moved from Atlanta, my family and I had just moved. I hadn't set up shop yet, and the Oklahoma City Thunder, who he was with at the time, were like, hey, we got to send a guy to you. Can you work with him? And he was really, stretch shortening cycle was a big issue with him. Just this big, kind of awkward guy, didn't do a lot of weight training, did even less sprinting or plyos, and I didn't really have a place to train him at the time. So this is him literally training in my front yard. We're doing non-counter movement, lateral hops, and then to mitigate some of that load early on, because he had never done this stuff, so I didn't want him to have too much stress and increase the risk of shin issues or anything like that. He just went right up the steps. I show you this because it's purposeful, right? We often whine about our resources or lack thereof. This is an NBA basketball player jumping up the front steps in my house. You can generally find a way. And somebody, oh, well, that's cement, that's going to hurt him. I get it. Okay? That's why we moderate the impact or the volume, the load, and we keep those very, we maybe did 3 that day. And again, since he's going to elevation, sometimes guys going to elevation on cement is still less impact than what some people are having their athletes do on turf or track. Right? So it's not about optimal, it's about what you have access to. Next. Considerations, and this is where we start getting into categorization. This is what helps you create a system or a roadmap. What we're going to look at when we're trying to bridge the gap from the rack to the track is what are the strength demands of the sport, what are the speed demands, and then not only that, what are the sport demands? How quickly do I need to express this force? Right? A discus thrower might need to express force at a different rate than a professional boxer. Right? Doesn't mean anyone's less important or less athletic than the other, but obviously the discus throw, where there's a little bit more of a lead up, by Floyd Mayweather, they've got to be able to move a little bit quicker, have those synapses fire. So some of that is going to dictate what you do. Next, please. When we're looking at the stretch shortening cycle, just good review. Rapid muscle lengthening, followed by a rapid muscle shortening. We're talking about stretch shortening cycle now, not plyometrics, right? Rapid muscle lengthening, loading down, rapid shortening, just like a rubber band. If I have an athlete that has a hard time understanding, I literally slingshot a mini band, I go, there's your plyometric, or there's your stretch shortening cycle button. That's all we need to focus on. It optimizes the use of the stretch reflex and stored elastic energy. All that means to you and anybody else that's a sport coach that maybe doesn't have this background is it helps your athletes move more efficiently. Right? The better our stretch shortening cycle is, the more efficiently these individuals move, the quicker they are. ESPN would refer to this as that athlete's twitchy. Twitchy is not a term. It's not a term, right? But anybody that you think is quick, twitchy, whatever the popularized terms out there that laymen use, that's the stretch shortening cycle in action. Next. So when we look at the mechanisms of the SSC, and I'm not going to go through this too in depth because it's better that you guys look at it on your card, otherwise you're trying to listen to me, look at the slide. But there's 2 primary areas here. There's the elastic contribution of the stretch shortening cycle, and that comes from the storage of energy within the muscle, and also the tendon. And then there's the contractile contribution. So this is the force potentiation. This is like the nervous system saying, hey man, we need you to fire. We need you to generate force. Right? So if a running back's right here, ball's hiked, boom, he's got to hit it. That's the activation time, the stretch reflex, neuromuscular qualities as well. So there's mechanical and neuromuscular qualities. That's all we're looking at. Okay? And you'll see the neuromuscular generally improve first as an athlete gets indoctrinated or initiated into SSC because they're starting to negotiate that ground contact time. Jump roping is a good example of a low-level plyometric where you see that. As coordination improves, right? We were talking yesterday, I'm working with an athlete, pro soccer player, coming back from dual ankle reconstruction. She wanted to get right into running. No chance. She's cleared, but no chance we're starting with that. I want to see her jump rope first. She jump rope. Quad. hitting her foot, donkey kicking. 3 weeks later, moving. All right, now we can have a relationship with the ground that's a little bit more impactful. Guys, we have high school strength coaches, and this isn't to demean anybody. This is to say we've all lost our way. We've all been guilty. We have high school strength coaches that have kids doing crazy amounts of depth jumps, haven't taught them how to land, and the kid has never jumped rope before. It's a problem. It's a problem. Next. Simple way to look at the SSC. Again, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't know it well enough yourself. So any sport coaches or anybody else in the room that just needs a refresher, this has always confused you, and believe me, I've been there as well. It's a spring, right? That's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to make people a little bit more springy, and that's very much how that musculotendinous reflex works. Next. Now, upper body. Can these things be upper body? Of course. This is Lyle Alzado. They're trying to plyo push-ups. But again, a traditional kind of way to work on these ballistic or stretch shortening cycle methods would just be like your med ball partner drop. Imagine I'm on top here, right here. Somebody lays down, we have a light med ball. I drop it, boom, right back up. So, same ideology, right? Same neuro qualities, just different body part. Just be smart. We have some people that are having athletes trying to do jumping push-ups or plyo push-ups, and it's just wah, wah. They don't adjust the angle, they don't use band assistance. It's gotta be quick, guys. It's almost gotta feel too easy. It shouldn't be slow, they shouldn't be tired, it shouldn't be high rep. This isn't exercise. This is a very potent stimulus, bang, 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 done. Very, it should not be anything that tires people out. Next. So, this is another misconception. In true plyometric activities, most of the stretching and the shortening actually takes place in the tendons, not the muscles. And the tendons are what's responsible for a lot of this elastic reactive load. It's not muscles. And so understanding how do we progress this isn't a factor of getting stronger. That plays a role. Of course, we've got to generate force. But there's a musculotendinous aspect to this, that the tendons have to get acclimated to greater forces. That's why one of the best things that you can do over time, like we're starting a plyometric program today, right now, day 1. I just met all of you. I don't know your training history. We're doing altitude drops. Drop off a box. Single leg snap downs. Double leg snap downs. Very simple, just get them a relationship with the ground. That doesn't look like performance to some people. Why are my athletes just dropping and getting into these weird positions? Well, coach, you may not believe it, but actually doing this helps them be more tolerant when they're out sprinting and doing things on the practice field, because we're just getting the tendons and everything locked in, ready to go, and get acclimated to stress. It's like a callus on your hands, and I'll discuss that later. Next. All right. So now when we're programming, and this is huge, and you don't have to use this is just how I think of it. If we're having a conversation over coffee today, and I'm thinking about what plyos I'm going to use, I look at the movement. So this is typically based on the dominant movement patterns in the session prior. So if we're working on speed work or acceleration, and we're predominantly focusing on linear stuff, the majority of my plyos are going to be linear in nature. Whether that's a broad jump, whether that's a single leg hurdle hop, whether anything like that. If we're focusing on a multi-directional or change of direction session, most of them are going to be lateral, rotational, anything of that nature. We try to feed it that way. It's good for early learning. Does this mean you can never do a multi-directional hop, jump, or bound on a linear day? Or somebody's going to come get you? No. It just means start off, people always want to get outside the box. Start in the box at first, create consistency within your program and your staff. Keep it simple. It's also great for your athletes. They start to understand this. When we're trying to project force downfield, everything should speak to that. It gives you a rallying point, contextual cue, right, Ricardo? Ricardo's like, yes, sir. Direction, okay? That's force vectors, and that feeds into what we just talked about. I'm sorry, movement by movement, guys. I meant counter movement, non-counter movement, things like that. Force vector or direction is the example I was just talking about, linear, multi-directional, what have you. And then initiation. I'm going to show you examples of this. It's way better than you guys trying to write down what's on the slide. Next. Terminology. If there was one slide I could really assert that you guys need to challenge yourself with and take home today, it's this. Get your terminology down. A jump is a 2-foot landing or 2-foot takeoff to a 2-foot landing. Demonstrated a moment ago. That is a jump. A hop is a 1-foot takeoff to the same foot landing. So I'm on the left, I'm up, I land on the left. That is a hop. A bound is a single leg or 1-legged takeoff to the opposite leg That is a bound. So 45-degree bound, I'm alternating right and left. Jump, hop, bound. Don't intermix them. You need to have clarity and consistency. Right? You have that within your programming, looking at the percentage of repetition maximum, the reps and sets, minimize ambiguity, create a cleaner system. Next. Here's your jump. Go ahead, bud, you can hit it again. There you go. And this is just a tradition, this is a true plyometric. Drop it off, boom, right over the hurdle. Decent landing, he starts to round his low back. This guy never really lifted weights since middle school. Soft as pond water, but we still got to have him get a relationship with the ground. That old myth that you can't do plows until you squatted 2 times body weight's garbage. Guess what? People sprint. Right? We're going to have people wait till they do 2 times body weight to sprint. Sprinting is the ultimate form of plyometric. Right? That was just a general rule because people love rules. Right? But that's not, you do not have to have a double body weight squat before you start plyometrics. Should you be foundationally strong and stable? For sure. Should you be medically cleared? Of course. But man, there would be no sprint. Everybody please stop. Do not let your son or daughter sprint. Everybody needs to squat double body weight. Give me a break. Next. Go ahead and hit it again. There we go. Here is Dante Moncrief, wide receiver for Jacksonville Jaguars, doing a triple hop for distance. Horizontal force production. See the left leg takeoff. Subsequent left leg landing. Another left leg takeoff. Minimize the amortization phase if we're not. Look at that. And look at the hip. Woo! And then, yes, he's going to stick it. Guys, that's control. It took us 3 weeks to work on that, though. You know where we started? Single leg snap downs. So it's not where you start, it's where you finish. Be patient with your programming. Movement mastery, it's better to have people do 2 to 3 things really well than you to be like, we got to do the whole thing. Just meet them where they're at. Look at that, that makes it free. Next one, please. Okay, wide receiver for the Colts, doing an alternating lateral bound into a sprint takeoff. I love these guys. These are what I call transitional plyos. So we start doing one thing, and then to really emphasize kind of how this transfers for these guys, you can see he loads into it. So he loads left, loads right, loads left, loads right, redirects, and gets out. Beautiful, beautiful drill, very effective. Again, started, if Coach Mike, if Coach was watching me today and we were getting a guy ready to do that, first week, 1 or 2, old boy just might be doing that over a small person. Just get accustomed to the ground. And that's a challenge to you sport coaches as well from a strength coach perspective. Know that what you see is usually part of a bigger plan. If you go watch a world-class chef cook, you're not going to see anything fancy. You're going to see knives, you're going to see utensils. They just choose higher quality ingredients and tend to be a little bit more patient. It's not like the Benihana where they do the flaming onion thing. Choo-choo, here comes the train. Good training isn't supposed to be entertainment. That's a whole other classification. Go ahead, next please. So now let's look at the movement direction. Linear, lateral, and rotational. Now you already saw some examples of that. But I want to make sure it's really clear. I hate going to talks where they don't show examples. Because then you feel like, God, I got all this knowledge, but I don't know what to do with it. Go ahead, bud. Next. Good. Linear. James Anderson, Carolina Panthers, second leading tackler. Just doing some bounce. Linear bounce. Boop, boop. Trying to minimize that amortization phase. Short response. Right into a sprint. Next. This is lateral. Now these guys were ugly. Zach Cassian, the guy going right now, is an NHL player. This is Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon had some attention span issues. And not every rep was clean. I told the folks at UT yesterday, I go, it's okay to not show clean reps, because if I just showed you guys perfect reps and all you saw was clips like Dante Moncrief, but then you go home and you see what you see. Right? Like, we all have this. Look at this. Jadeveon Clowney can't figure out how to land. Right? So did we go into the next variation? No, I'm like, dude, come over here. Let me teach you how to land. He thinks it's boring. He doesn't think it's boring anymore when you teach him boom, and then you push him around or take a bungee and try to really test his stability. You know, they all think it's stupid until you challenge their ego. And then they're like, wow, I really can't do this simple thing. Maybe that's what led to an increased risk of non-contact. Next. You're doing great, Roy, by the way. And this is an example of a rotational. Right? So I'm going to single leg drop, bound into a rotary plane. There are some folks in your motor learning realm or side of things, and that's where my background is, motor learning, that think a lot of non-contact injuries are not just a matter of strength or preparation, but also just movement variability. Right? You see this. This is a wide receiver cutting and then reaching out trying to make a catch. But if they're not exposed to certain patterns or certain constraints, that can be a huge issue. Their nervous system has to get activated. Any dog owners in here? It's kind of like socializing your dog, okay? We have 2 rescues. We have a pit bull rescue and a Doberman. You got to socialize those dogs early. I'm trying to socialize, for lack of a better term, or indoctrinate them to different movement patterns even if they look a bit odd. Okay? Is that going to be the foolproof special sauce? Can I guarantee you that if we do a bunch of those that they'll never get injured? No. But at least they're getting varied stressors and different motor skills. Next. Hybrids. This is something I pieced together. I call these transitional plyometrics. Okay? It is a term I made up, so it's not in the literature or what have you. It's just how I make sense of them and how I categorize them. Call it whatever you want. But what this is a hybrid, and I tend to program this as we get closer to in-season or training camp, depending on the sport, is in sport, they're going to produce and absorb force in multiple vectors at once, right? Obviously, I'm going to be able to run in, I may have to cut, right? If I'm tennis, I'm shuffling, I may have to drop step. So I want to acclimate them to that as well. Go ahead, Gordon. So we've gone through a lot of progressions. Guys are just getting acclimated to accepting force, absorbing force, redirecting force. One of my favorite things to do later on. Okay. Real simple. Again, nothing sexy here. Just sound application and building. Go ahead, Gordon. So this now is how we look at initiation. So think about this. We've looked at direction. We've looked at types of jumps or nomenclature, jump, hop, bound, what have you. Now, how can you vary the initiation? I'm going to put this down for a moment. I apologize. Can everybody still hear me okay? Okay. If you can't, I should be coaching probably. Non-counter movement, just starting off. That's that freeze at the bottom. Okay? 3 to 4 seconds, whatever, but get them to own that. There's never really such a thing as a true non-counter movement jump. If you're a physiology nerd in the crowd, even if you have them here, when you say go, they're going to kind of twitch. But the idea is that they're frozen, they're locked in, preloaded, whoop, that's a non-counter movement. Counter movement, down, up. Okay, now it's a rapid counter movement. The lengthening occurs immediately prior to the shortening. Double contact's tricky. I don't see many people do this anymore. So imagine I'm in a non-counter movement stance, small impulse, and then big force production. So, right there. Just a quick, it's almost like somebody pulled the rug right up from under you and you hit it. And you can do this continuous. I'm here. Right? There's a lot of ways you can take double contact. Continuous. You saw that a moment ago. Boing, boing, boing. James Anderson. Depth jump. You saw an example of that as well. Guys, this scales from lower intensity. And I apologize for the formatting there. It should say non-counter movements, just off the slide a little bit. Low intensity to higher intensity. Does it mean week 6, week 9, week 12 you're not doing non-counter movement? No. They still got a place. Move to the warm-up now. You get a little bit of activation, review. Right? Just because you're not in high school anymore, does that mean that you forget how to do math? No, you gotta add up your bills. So just giving you an idea of what are we doing today. And you'll see examples in a program later on. Next. Now let's talk about optimizing transfer. Very elusive term. People love to talk about transfer in training. If that exists at all, it exists in the stretch shortening cycle, plyometric, ballistic realm. Because that's where we really teach our athletes how to take the strength that we're building in the weight room and get it to sport. Sport coaches should love plyos and ballistics. It's where the magic happens. Otherwise, we have a bunch of strong athletes that don't move for crap. Next. So what we want to do is we're trying to apply optimal force, i.e. their strength and velocity, speed, with maximum efficiency. So that means in the best direction in the shortest amount of time. Right? We know where we want to get to. Next, that's the goal. Good example. I use this slide, I use this picture in almost every deck that I get. Very precise. Quick, fast, explosive, precise. Just look at that, what term comes to mind, Christian? If you just look at that, how would you like, at the base level, how would you describe that punch? Explosive. Think of the terms that come to mind. You know it when you see it. That's the beauty about this kind of training. It's not ambiguous. Next. Well, what's the point? Well, we see improved sprint times. We see it increases maximal strength and power. Yes, it even applies back to the weight room because we're enhancing rate coding. We're enhancing the synapses between the brain and the body, right? Nervous system, all the contractile elements. Injury prevention measures. I don't like injury prevention, injury risk reduction. Decrease Increased ground reaction forces keeps our athletes healthier longer because they're able to negotiate that. Improved hamstring to quadricep ratio, which can play a huge role on ACL risk. That's the pertinence there. Okay, next. Now, the performance benefits, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but here to give a little bit of a background. Increased explosive strength. You know the benefit there. Increased reactive strength. Literally can help with decision making. Helps with decision making. Feints, jab, you see an opponent moving, you're in a reactive situation, you gotta move. Improved ability to transfer force through the joints. I need to drive this home. Because otherwise we just talk about performance, 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 and we don't focus on movement economy, they're synergistic. And that's why I think people get things wrong, is they think I have to do all these fancy plyos. Don't forget, it's a preparation thing too. Next. And for those of you that like statistics, facts, and figures, movements utilizing the stretch shortening cycle have been shown to increase performance by around 10 to 15% compared to those that don't. And that is a big difference in the world of sport. 1/10 of a second difference can make the difference between a gold and silver medal. Do not tell me that 10 to 15% is not adequate or worthwhile. If all of you got a 15% raise right now, who would be upset? Next. Force velocity relationship, these are kind of the nerd slides, so I apologize. So all this is saying is, all right, we have a certain amount of time, we have a certain amount of force, we have a certain amount of velocity, we're trying to optimize those relationships. So Gordon, there's a lot of next coming, brother. There we go. We're trying to shift this curve up and to the right, which means exactly what I said. We're just trying to help our athletes display more force more quickly. The quintessential definition of efficiency. Gordon? Good, that's the time element again. Now, when we look at getting athletes strong, this is where max strength resides on that force velocity continuum. Notice the backdrop's aligned. So if I just get my athletes stronger, that ain't the whole thing. Gosh, we've got a lot of force, and that's great. We need to be able to push people around. We need to be able to produce maximum force for a variety of reasons. But there's other aspects to it. Gordon? So now if I look at speed strength, and this is where most people don't train because it almost feels too easy. You can see we start to address different elements of that curve. This is what they mean when they say surf the curve. The program shouldn't just be all heavy lifting or 5x5 all year long. Next. Now we start to look at max velocity. Almost so light it doesn't feel like a workout. 30% or less sometimes of your maximum capability. So 1 to 10 RPE, 10 being maximum strain. You think you see Jesus? 1 being I'm sitting on the couch watching the national title game. We're talking about like a 3-level effort. That's enough that your coach would want to slap you silly if you're an athlete and they saw it. They'd be like, come on, put some weight on the bar. Sometimes we don't need to. Sometimes we need to move that sucker fast. We need all 3 of these things. Kind of like when you find a significant other, you want to find somebody that's hopefully driven, intelligent, and a good person. You have to find a balance of these things. Next. Rate of force development. This is somebody that's untrained. Can take them up to 500 milliseconds to make anything happen. Next one. Heavy resistance training, great, you got a strong group. They're producing more force, but dang, it's still taking them a lot of time. No wonder they look slow out there. No wonder you want to fire your strength coach. Next. This is where rate of force development comes into play. And one more time, Gordon. This is what plyometric training can do. Right? It helps us find that optimal expression window of how we can marry all these things and take our stronger athletes and make them more efficient. I'm hoping I'm driving this home. Any questions on this before I move on? I know graphs and figures and charts suck, but I just try to show you the spectrum and an overlay there. Next. So let's talk about management of injury risk. This is Andre Berto. Had the pleasure of working with him, 5-time world champ. Probably came the closest to beating Floyd Mayweather. He's another guy that hadn't really done any kind of training before, so a big part of my work is done in the combat sports world. I boxed competitively when I was in college and before and a little bit after. And so working with boxers is near and dear to my heart, and all of them have the training age of about your puppy. Like half of them haven't even sniffed a weight. And it's crazy. Next. So again, the essence of this is that we're trying to decrease injury risk by callousing the tendons, tissues, getting them used to it. Next. This is what we started off with every day. Andre hated the weight room, but he loved him some jump rope. That was fine, because that was going to be a component of our training. He loved to show off. But every day I just thought, and listen, I wouldn't be like, hey man, listen, jump roping is really good for enhancing performance benefits and laying a foundation. You have 3 minutes on the clock. We're going to progress this each week. I go, show me what you can do. And he goes, okay. boom, 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 just starts going. He loves it. They don't need to know all the stuff that we know. Meet them where they're at and get them going. Next. Now, are they protective? And I don't know if you can see the slide really well. The guy's got his mic hooked up, and there ain't no lock. So they're only protected if you really think this through. Next. When you don't think it through, well, we'll go through some of the stats first. So you look at some of the research done. We've seen a lot of research on plyos over the years. This is a sample size, females, 18, group of 18, underwent just 8 weeks of plyometrics training. And then there was a control group. The plyo group improved hop-based performance measures and improved lower limb kinematics. Important for the speed stuff that Clint is going to talk about next. So we're not even just looking at power and power expression and economy of movement in terms of just negotiating the ground. Like it can literally help people improve their form in a variety of activities. Right? It affects the way that they're able to do these things. They feel it differently. Plyometrics have been shown to increase or improve performance factors and decrease, this is in conjunction with what I just told you about enhancing form and kinematics, risk of ACL. What more proof do you need? Hopefully this isn't a state your case kind of thing. Plyos have a place. Next. So injuries primarily occur during unexpected over-lengthening of the muscles or ligaments during landing and deceleration tasks. How many of you teach deceleration regularly? It's easy to forget. It's a speed-obsessed culture. We have a lot of athletes that are all gas and no brakes. Decel, huge part of plyo and stretch shortening cycle activities as well. Many of these injuries occur when they find themselves in a position where they don't have a robust motor cachet. What I just talked about, right? Like exposure, socializing your dog, all those kinds of things. So variation in your plyometrics is critical, helps motor sequencing, helps them negotiate a complex environment. They improve your ability to handle not only different loads, but those loads that come at you at multiple speeds. So rapid cuts, rapid decel. Athletes typically, let me make this clear, this whole slide can be consolidated like this. Please hear me. The majority of people do not get hurt running and jumping. They get hurt landing and cutting. These have a role within that spectrum as well. A lot of athletes get hurt landing and cutting, not running or jumping. What about hamstring pulls? I get it. You see just as many ACLs, meniscus, all this kind of stuff. Right? Yes, hamstring pulls can happen, but that still fits into this. Because greater movement economy decreases the stress on the hamstring. It's a whole symphony. They play together. Next. Another example, 2012 meta-analysis showed that males and females involved in a neuromuscular-based ACL prevention program that included plyometrics, significant risk in significant decreased risk in ACL. Male 85%, female 52%. And that, think about that. Female anatomy, think how different it is. Think of the hip structure. Stuff that I've told Coach Anna Craig that she needs to talk about because she's got a wealth of knowledge in this. But think about, guys, that is tremendous. Is it guaranteed? No. Nothing's guaranteed in this game. Get out of coaching if you want guaranteed. Go do something else. Your adapters. Next. We're going to skip past this one because I want to spend more time on programming. This just says if you work with youth, same thing. Sometimes I present to audiences that they want nothing but research. I think you guys get the point. We have a lot of applied practitioners here. But a great research article, and again, you have the slides, so feel free to look it up. This just says the effect of unilateral, bilateral, and combined plyo training, right? So one that uses bound, hops, jumps, the wide spectrum, made massive improvements in performance for youth soccer players, even with a fairly basic program, one that you guys probably wouldn't like shake a stick at. It just helps them. It's huge for kids. Just be smart. Don't have your 5-year-old out there doing depth jumps off of something the height of your hips. And we'll get into that in the Q&A. Next. When done incorrectly, hey, let's see how high we can jump. Hey, let's do 30 of them. Hey, let's wear oxygen masks when we do it. Next. That's what happens. Keep it up there for a minute, Gordon. Because people need to understand the risk of what happens when. Next. Inappropriate exposure. Inappropriate exposure to stimulus at different volumes and directions and all that, guys, will lead to that worst case scenario. I promise you that. So while nothing's guaranteed for exercise or injury risk prevention, I guarantee you do increase the risk if you implement this in an inpatient, manner. And one that's not prudent as well. Next. That was an excellent time. One time I met a construction worker that was sharp as all get out. We were talking when we were in line for something, just getting casual conversation. What do you do? What do you do? Yeah, I said if there was one thing that people knew about construction, because he had worked on skyscrapers in Abu Dhabi, New York City, LA, really interesting guy. Really interesting guy. But what's the one thing people need to know about skyscrapers? He goes, son, smart money's in the ground. It's all about the, what'd you say, Richard? Foundation. He goes, you can create this, that, have the fanciest architects. He goes, there's one thing I learned in my 43 years, smart money is in the ground. This is where I get on my soapbox about landing. Watch the foot, watch the ankle, watch the knee, watch the hip, just like a Terminator scan. Old school Schwarzenegger. Make sure you're paying attention to the landing, not just the outcome. You need to see where this dysfunction might be occurring. If you don't know, you need to bring out another professional and integrate within your team, or reach out, send videos, send it to a friend, right? But like, you've got to look at these differently. Next. That's where accentuating landings, right? There's research now coming out of the shred shorting cycle world that looking at accentuated drop jumps and just slight additions of overload. And now, why did I have weightlifting shoes on? Because I was pairing this up with some Olympic lifts and what have you, just testing some stuff out. You do not need to have weightlifting shoes on. It just happened to be what I was doing that night. These are 10-pound dumbbells, very, very, very light. And the research shows you don't want to go over 20% of body weight total, right? 30% body weight total, I think max for accentuated jumps. There's no clear-cut agreement yet. Most people do not need to do this, right? Most people don't. Your athletes, this ain't the missing link. This is even more intense than a depth jump, okay? But it would be stupid not to show you it. And when I talk about landings, this is all you'd have a guy do with no weights. Just start them off. Again, day one, you guys are all going to come up here. We're going to work on some landings. Hips back, dissipate force. Next. Include little things into your warm-up. I talked about this yesterday with the agility presentation. Rudiment jumps, pogos, lateral pogos. All this stuff can get included as part of your warm-up. Warm-up shouldn't just be stretching with a band. Get up, moving. These are simple everyday activities, relatively low intensity, highly effective. Next. Don't miss the obvious stuff. Footwear. Probably shouldn't go do a bunch of continuous 45-degree bounds in Nike Freeze. You'd be surprised at how many guys come and they're like, I don't forgot my cleats today. I'm like, dude, you're a 5-time Pro Bowler, you forgot your cleats? Somebody comes in with like Air Maxes, right? The air bubble's so huge that there's no way they're understanding what's going on off the ground. Somebody comes in and somebody told them now they should do barefoot training. Who wants to do plyometrics barefoot? Golly, it's a noisy world. I heard from a guy that if I do it with one shoe on and one shoe off, it works on asymmetries. Like, dude, whoever your guy is wrong. And then surface, make sure you're paying attention to surface. Next. The point is that athletes have to experience what they want, what you want them to express. That's a Van Gogh quote. You first have to experience what you want to express. Now, he was talking about artwork. It's hard to draw a picture if you don't know the world around you. These athletes don't know how to perform in certain contexts if they haven't been exposed to certain stimulus. Next. So now let's look at how we can put all this together. Programming considerations. Frequency, how many times a week are we going to do plyos? Volume, intensity, methods, scaling them up. Next. So again, you got to be too small for you to read off the slides. Please just kind of listen to me first and then you can review the notes. Right? Otherwise, again, you're not going to, the takeaways get confusing. So frequency, and this depends. How often are you training your athletes? There's no perfect formula here. It's going to depend on sport, the competition schedule, time of year. I always say if I wrote a training book, it would be lift weights at different speeds, in different ways, in different volumes, in different loads, different times a year. There's no one answer. Nobody's got a magic program or we'd all be out of the job. But if we're looking at a 2-time weekly example for plyos, session should take about 15 to 20 minutes. Right? If we're looking at 4 times a week, Tim talked about microdosing and elements of that yesterday. Great talk. Now we're doing it more frequently, so we're spreading that load over. Now it's like 5 to 15 minutes. You can get a lot done. So even if you don't have much time with guys, just spread it out over the course of the week. Volume, contacts, still no universally agreed upon what's the best contacts. Because again, you're looking at ages, genders, different sports. You gotta consider practice. There's too many variables to understand like contacts, right? Like even if we're doing a bunch of 120 average contacts, how many is that athlete, that tennis player now going to do in practice compared to the football player during camp? It's messy. But you just gotta track averages on your end. So 40 to 60 a session, if 2 times weekly, that drops. 20 to 30 a session, if we're going 4 times. You get the idea, no matter what we're looking at, whether movement variations, direction, limitations, initiations, all those things are going to decrease in number the more often you perform plyos throughout the week, because you're doing it more frequently, right? You don't want to overdose on medication, so to speak. Smaller doses over a prolonged period of time, just make sure to adapt those things. Next, says what I just talked about. The optimal dose for athletic enhancement of plyometrics in terms of ground contact still has yet to be identified. There ain't one coming. I asked James Radcliffe, who wrote several books on plyometrics. You track the ground contacts? He goes, no sir. But I can tell when an athlete starts looking more like a tomato hitting the pavement as opposed to a bouncy ball, I know we're done for the day. That's one of the best. That's the art of coaching, guys. And there's science behind it, right? I mean, imagine if you're hooked up to force plates. When those athletes, that ground reaction time slows down, he ain't wrong. So there's nothing wrong with kind of the subjective. You just got to marry it. Next. So now, when you look at kind of the methods of sequencing, well, how can we do this? So the foundation, we have landings, jumps, hops, right? Once we've got the foundation set, now we can really focus on the developmental aspect of true plyos. Now focus on short ground contact times. At first, just get these guys acclimated, let them know where they're at. Okay, Coach Craig came up here and so Coach Donnie Bain, and they said, hey, welcome to Texas. Here's the Wi-Fi, got you settled. That's foundation. Development, we're underway, baby. Now we're talking. Realization, short contact times, continue to push that. Higher intensity, now we get reactive strength index feedback. Don't worry about like, oh man, am I going to be able to collect the data and I'll do all the fancy stuff that I want to do early on. Get these boys and girls moving. Get them understanding the different positions of the body. And then transfer, obviously that's the highest level. Think of it as a pyramid. Just where should we start, how should we progress? For some collegiate athletes, this whole thing might take 12 weeks. For some high school athletes, the whole thing might take 12 months. It's okay, be patient. What's the rush? A 12-year-old's not half of a 24-year-old. Set them up for success. Get these guys going. There's going to be a lot of changes in their body. Next. Here's a spectrum. You might like this. So again, this is just saying what the previous slides showed. Giving you examples. Landing mechanics, concentric jumps, all the way up to high intensity, which is continuous hurdle jumps, tug jumps, drop jumps, transitional plyos. Very easy review for you because I know I'm giving you a lot of information. Great slide for you to just come back to and be like, where should I start? Okay? High Monday morning values, so to speak. Next. Sample programs are in there for you. Is this an example of what I do every day? No. Would you come see this exactly like this if you came and watched me? No. This is an example. The examples are good because they simplify and clarify. I always work well off examples. You can talk to me until you're blue in the face about something. I just got to see it. And then I got to do it. And I don't program it until those things are done. So it just shows you if we're doing linear movement skills for a novice athlete 4 times a week. How would we manage that? And if we're doing an advanced, if we're working with an advanced athlete, multi-directional movement skill-based presentation or day, we're doing a lot of agility and what have you. And we're doing it 2 times a week. Guys, I'm trying to show you cross spectrums. Novice athlete, linear conditions, advanced athlete, right? Multi-directional conditions. And what you see here is not a ton of difference. Right? In the red example, the novice athlete 4 times a week, just doing a non-counter movement box jump, 2 by 5 repetitions. This would be for an athlete that's already done altitude drops or what have you. Then we're doing some non-counter movement hops, non-counter movement bounds. There ain't real plyo in there. But there's plyo progression. Advanced athlete, now we start to see it. Lateral jumps, continuous hurdle, 45-degree hops, counter movement hurdle, 45-degree bound stick. Great example for you just to kind of, and you'll notice the volumes and intensity scale based on how many times a week we're doing it. It's chess, not checkers, right? So if you have some obstacles here, lower volume, okay, we can do this. These 3 guys are really good, this one's not. I gotta separate them up in groups. How do I make him feel not alienated since he's not with them? All right, I'm gonna make this harder and make it speak to something that he cares about a little bit more. I know he's worried about ACL stuff. These guys are just performance, you find different things and you modify. And don't make a big deal out of it. So many coaches are like, well, I got an athlete and he got kind of upset because he got separated from the group. You made a big deal out of it. It's kind of like telling somebody, listen, Ricardo, I got some bad news, man. You're really gonna hate me. Well, way to set that one up. Next. I'm always just like, hey, got some great information for you. By the way, this sucks. Plyometric guidelines, again, I try to be redundant here. Movement, coaches, especially sport coaches, to make sense of all the jargon. Just think we're going from less stable or more stable to left stable. Gotta master the 2-foot stuff, the non-counter movement, the landings, before we get into rotational bounds, all these other variations. Direction, understand when you're watching your strength coaches, you're gonna see a wide menu. Just like kind of like how do you like it steak cooked? It's food all the same, right? But everybody's got a different taste. In this case, our taste is relevant to the athlete's experience level. Linear, lateral, rotational. I'm also gonna do probably some more rotary stuff with a tennis player than I would maybe a swimmer or a diver. Does that mean I'm not doing any for swimming and diving? No. They have to somersault in the pool, they have to do, there's rotary elements in everything that we do in everyday life. But a tennis player is just going to tend to express that a little bit more. Now, some people may say, well, that's why you don't need to give them more. We can go back and forth on that. Either way, it's not a huge difference. Right? Sport specificity is a myth, by the way. Right? Sport specificity in the weight room and training is a myth. You want sport specificity? Play your sport. Coaches, sport coaches, understand that's not us being indignant. But the point is we're trying to get athletes to adapt. We want to get them stronger and faster and more resilient for you. But that doesn't happen if they don't have a new stimulus. Right? Imagine running the same play again and again and again and again and again and again. Yeah, you might get proficient to a point, but it also gets predictable. The other team's going to adapt. So if I'm doing the same things you are doing, the body's going to sit here and be like, oh, I know this, I don't need to change. It's not our job to do that. So there's elements. We don't mimic sport, we strengthen the muscles and movements involved with sport. Equipment, guys, don't get so caught up on it. So many people, oh, I gotta have hurdles, I gotta have this, I gotta have that. Use the ground. Okay, but start with a low box, progress to the ground, hurdles, high box. And why is high box and low box there? That just depends on, because again, it's force generating capacity, not just ground impacts. A lot of ways you can mix that up. Next, monitoring options, and we're coming to a close here. You can use contact mats, force plates, Vertec, chalk in hand. Guys, I've had the opportunity to work at the University of Nebraska as a volunteer and intern starting off, and I've also worked as a full-time strength coach at a place that was on top of a Mexican restaurant. It was the Old Roxbury nightclub. I'm not joking. It was in Hollywood, West Hollywood, Old Roxbury nightclub, no budget. So Nebraska had everything. It had everything, right? You could use force plates, yada, yada, yada. Mexican nightclub restaurant, we had to go back to chalk in hand. Make it work. Just get an idea of where they're at. Right? You have to do something. There should be no excuse. Make sure you're using your eyes, a notebook, record this stuff. You don't have to have fancy monitoring software. Next, how do you monitor it? Huge take home here. Reactive strength index. This can be considered a measure of explosiveness, and it's taken, your reactive strength index is taken by looking at the jump height in meters, just do the simple conversion, and dividing that by the ground contact time. Never be on the jump mat. How high did they jump? How long did it take them to get off that, right? There's multiple jumps. The average height, ground contact time, go from there. Reactive strength index is a measure of explosiveness, and it can be increased either by increasing the height at which one jumps or decreasing the amount of time they spend on the ground, which is great. That's why we don't want people just jumping on higher boxes. That doesn't tell me anything about progression, because it's about ground contact time. Remember, the very first thing we said in here is the main difference between a plyometric and a jump is amortization phase, the relationship with the ground. Am I making that clear enough? Please. If you have questions, again, it's not you. I'm not making it clear enough, and I want to do that for you. You guys paid good money to be here and drove a long time. Next, I've given you a reactive strength index chart that you can take from your slides and you can print off and you can put in your weight room or your notebook or whatever you want. And it just helps you make sense of the data. Nothing worse than when you have a bunch of data and nobody tells you what to do with it. You're just kind of like, how do I make sense? And more importantly, the athlete, right? Like the athlete needs to make sense of it. So, if we have the lower we are in RSI, that's low reactive strength ability, it tells you the athlete's unprepared for moderate intensity plyometrics. Kick it in the foundation phase for a while. It's okay. Guys, your value as a coach isn't predicated on the complexity of what you do. I'm telling you, again, come watch me, I'm boring. Like the skill of what we do and the values within the interactions, not the cute exercises. As we get to moderate reactive strength index, 2.0, 2.5. All right, now we have a well-established, relatively speaking, to their age, reactive strength ability. Now I'll start to put some more intensive plyometric methods in there. Now I'll start to progress it. On the higher end, this is world-class reactive strength levels, limited capacity for further improvements. Guys, that's like gold medalists. That is people, I believe you. When you see that, you know. You don't need a ground contact now. I remember somebody telling me that when I first started out. They're like, growing up, especially in Nebraska, like, I'm an above average athlete. I can maybe play in the NFL, or I can be a pro baseball player. And then do you guys remember the first time you really saw a world-class athlete? And you're like, okay. Not that you have decreased confidence in yourself, but you get it. You get it. And you're just like, I called my dad when I moved to Georgia, and I go, they're built differently down here. Over. Just like, so that's a helpful chart for you. Next. If you want some research that makes sense of that, because again, 60 minutes is hard to kind of really lock that in. This is a great research article, trying to provide you guys with as much resource that you can recall and kind of go through this on your own if you'd like, but it talks about that index. And if you're somebody that wants research behind it, a little bit more explanation. Next. So the whole point, guys, and why we're doing plyometrics, whether we look at the performance side of things or injury risk reduction, is we're trying to avoid or manage decay of athletic qualities. True athleticism is expressed through plyometrics, the strength shortening cycle, the neuromuscular system, and all that. There's a harmony at play. If our strength training was the bass and all those other instruments, right, we have these things as the violin and it's symphonic. We need it all to come together to play a nice little tune. And you need to look at your athletes and be doing some form of jump profiling to see, do I have athletes that are really strong? Are they great at non-counter movement? And if you look at their non-counter movement and it's nearly the same as a counter movement jump or a depth jump, that tells you got a strong athlete, relatively strong athlete, depending on what their counter movement jump or their non-counter movement is. But their ballistic or their stretch shortening cycle aspects aren't really developed enough. There needs to be a gap. So if my vertical jump non-counter movement was 30 inches, which is pretty solid for a non-counter movement, and then my counter movement's 31, it's not quite the gap we're looking for. We want to get that up to 32, 33. That would tell you, okay, Brett's got to work on SSC. That's why when I travel and speak a lot, I always make sure and do plyometrics as part of my training. I don't get off the plane and I'm like, let's deadlift! I'm sitting on a plane, I'm in this position, right? You're gonna throw your back out. First thing I do to try to wake up so I can perform for you guys and be on is I do some depth jumps, I try to find a place to do some throws. I've got to do something stretch shortening cycle oriented. It helps me kind of get everything woken up. That's the crypt keeper, by the way, for anybody that's over the age of 30. Next. Worth remembering. Strength coaches and sport coaches alike, and this was from Houdini himself. And I put Houdini in it because, again, everybody wants to be a magician and an illusionist and this entertainer now, the consummate entertainer. An old trick done well is far better than a new trick with no effect. Fundamentals, not fluff, guys. Be patient, be purposeful, and make sure that you get these guys locked in from top to bottom. Next. I want to thank you guys again for your time. If you have any questions, any concerns, you want to learn more about any of these resources, just go to artofcoaching.com. Very simple, straightforward. And I'm going to be here most of the day. I think my flight leaves at 5. I'm